They should give Launchpad McQuack his own show solely based on the name.
You are Locked On Fantasy Basketball, your daily fantasy basketball podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Hello and welcome to the Locked On Fantasy Basketball podcast brought to you by Basketball Monster. My name is Josh Lloyd and I am the lead fantasy analyst at basketballmonster.com and at Yahoo Sports Australia, and you can find me on Twitter as always at redrock_bball and on Instagram at Locked On Fantasy Basketball. Today we're looking back at the 4 games across the league on Tuesday, previewing 9 games for Wednesday, catching up on some news as well. Michael Bolton.
Let's get to it.
Let's get to it indeed. Before I get into the recap, so just as I'm recording this, a tweet comes out from Shams Charania saying that Golden State is moving on from the DAngelo Russell conversations with the Timberwolves at this juncture. The Warriors have been clear with Minnesota on the price point, and the Timberwolves to this point are not willing to meet it. So basically the Wolves aren't paying enough despite them being the thirstiest people in the room looking for a player. I've never seen some team so desperate for one single player, and then they're not willing to meet any sort of price for it. So it does appear, and then follow-up reporting from John Krasinski of The Athletic, that those talks of D'Angelo to Minnesota were cooling off. I didn't expect that deal to get done. I didn't think the Warriors would do it. It looked like maybe I was going to be wrong over the last 24 hours, but now it appears that we're going the other way, and it doesn't look like that's going to happen, which could put a big pin in those Covington and Capela and the Atlanta and Houston side of that deal as well. So a lot of more stuff going to go on here over the next 24 to 48 hours with the trade deadline. But let's get into these games now. Let's look at the first one. The Milwaukee Bucks, another big win over the Pelicans, 120 to 108. Giannis Antetokounmpo, 34 and 17. He was great from the field, 71%. He was bad from the line.
Giggity!
I should have said that he was 69% before I hit that drop, but he was 69% on 13 attempts, while Middleton was also excellent, 28 and 8 with 3 steals. Brookie Lopez had 12 and 5 with 2 blocks as well, and Wes Matthews, who'd been in the bin recently, has 17 points in 28 minutes with 5 triples. Bledsoe also looked good, 16, 6 and 7. All 5 starters scored at least 12 points. The big ragu, Dante DiVincenzo, only 18 minutes with Matthews playing more. He still had his 2 steals, he still had his 5 assists, and that's exactly the sort of thing that you need from him if you do roster him in a 12-team league. He's been a top 100 player in his last 20 games, so there is value for Dante in 12-team formats. Not much else to really talk about with this squad. They are really a 6 or a 5-player fantasy squad. For the Pelicans, Brandon Ingram, not at that 30-plus usage anymore, but 32 points, 7 rebounds, 3 triples, 2 steals, 1 block, 74% true shooting. That's why I had him as a buy low the other day, because the low production was tied in with horrible shooting, not necessarily all the Zion impact. So he's jumping back up now. While Josh the Hitman Hart, they look to really like his combination with Williamson. 8 and 7 in 29 minutes for Josh with 4 assists and 3 steals. He's moving into 12-team league discussions as well, while Lonzo also playing pretty well, 11 and 14 with 3 threes there. It was not a good night from Jrue Holiday. He did have an early trip to the locker room. They didn't seem to think it was any injury, and he didn't go back with any trainers, but he only played 29 minutes, 7, 3, and 5 with 2 steals and a block. Now, like Ingram when he struggled early on, this is 21% shooting. 21% shooting is not Zion Williamson causing him to miss those shots. He still had a 24% usage. His plus minus wasn't great. It was negative 18, but Ingram's was minus 17 as well. So that's not really an indication. It was just a bad night from Jrue. So don't go too panicky here on him. Even if someone looks to sell him off at no really bargain basement prices, I'd be inquiring about getting him. As for Zion, speaking of bad shooting, 20 points, 7 rebounds and 5 assists, but 26% shooting. At least he hit some free throws, 10 of 14 from the line. Still not great, but not as bad as his overall field goal percentage. He's still figuring a lot of stuff out, and he's only the 179th ranked player so far this season because of those low percentages, and the defensive numbers haven't really come in yet. But Williamson is going to be a beast. Well, Derek Favors, it wasn't good for Favors here. He still played the 25 minutes, and he can be useful in 25, but no points on 0 of 3 shooting. Yes, it's one of the best defensive teams in the NBA, but only 5 rebounds, 1 block. I am still holding him in 12-team leagues. I think he's a drop in 8-team leagues, and in 10s, I'm on the border there with Favors. He could be a drop, but I'm still like to give it just a little bit more time to see what happens, because the last couple of games have been not great, but this was one of the worst ones that we've seen from him of late. The next game, we look at the Charlotte Hornets and the Houston Rockets. The Rockets win this one 125-110. For the Hornets, they made a change to their starting lineup. Paul Washington Jr., who'd been struggling with an ankle injury, he remained on the bench. And we had Cody Martin make his first start. Now, Martin played 36 minutes. They really like what he can do. 12-5 with 2 triples. Now, he's not a 12-team league guy at all. But in a 16-team league situation, I don't think that it's a crazy idea to go and add Martin. As for Washington, 8-6. He's barely a top 150 player over the last 20 games, despite playing 32 minutes a night. In a 10-teamer, he is a drop to me, and he's on the border in a 12-teamer. While Zeller played only 13 minutes in this game, just the 3 points. Terry Rozier, 25-4. Devontae Graham, 16-4-10 were strong, while Malik Monk and Miles Bridges also looked great. 20-15 for 39 minutes for Bridges. That is really, really good. Obviously, he is much better at power forward. If they commit to him at power forward over Washington, he is a must-add anyway. I'd be adding him in all 10s and 12-team leagues at the moment, Bridges, but it could fall off a cliff at any point. But he looks really good at the moment. While Monk is a 14-team league ad with 12-team upside, 19-6 in 31 minutes for Monk, whose minutes continue to push up most nights. For the Rockets, Jimmy Harden had 40-9 with 12 assists, 3 steals, 4 triples, 1 block. Hopefully you bought low. They were without Clint Capela and Russell Westbrook, and they played Isaiah Hartenstein only 3 minutes. So one big man the entire game for 3 minutes. That's it. So if Capela's traded, guys, and I've had this question multiple times, hey, Capela's rumored to be traded. Do we go and grab Hartenstein? They're not playing Hartenstein. So no, you don't. They're playing PJ Tucker there, 13-10 with 3 steals and 3 threes for Peach, while Dan House, loving playing at power forward, 22-9 with 3 steals, 6 triples and a block. I find it hard to believe this sort of level is going to keep up from House. He was 55% on his threes. The defensive numbers are coming. But, for the time being, absolutely he's a short-term ad while we work to see what's going on with Capela. Benny McLemore started, hit 4 triples with 14 points when Austin Rivers had 11 there as well. While Eric Gordon, just rough. 16 points on 27% shooting. We know the usage goes up when one of Russ or Jim are out. Russ was out. 34% usage. The problem is he just did nothing with it. And of course, very little else to go there with Gordon. Not a 12-team league guy. I cannot stress that enough about Eric Gordon. Has come out from Shams and from Woj. We had the earlier report that I mentioned about DAngelo Russell being out, but now serious discussions apparently occurring with Clint Capela rumored to go to the Hawks, Robert Covington to go to the Rockets, Evan Turner and draft picks going to the Timberwolves, and then a potential 4th team involved, which Woj reported as being the Denver Nuggets. Now, a lot of people want to get the step on this. What would happen most likely? Johnny Collins, a little bit of a bump down. Probably loses some rebounds, probably loses some blocks as well by playing more power forward. Capela's numbers, they possibly stay similar. I think his minutes are fine. I think you might actually see his usage jump up a little bit with Trae Young passing him. Not that Harden's not a good passer, but Young is just a little bit better, but ultimately the same. For Houston, Robert Covington would come in. He would take the Daniel House role starting at power forward, and his numbers would probably be the same. They might actually improve because instead of playing 30 minutes a night, he plays 34 or 35. It would be a big hit to House, who'd been playing some regular minutes and putting up some good numbers, but Covington would slide into that role. As I just mentioned, with PJ Tucker, he had a good game today, but prior to that, with Capela out, he's done absolutely nothing. So this doesn't make me run to grab him, and it definitely doesn't make me run to grab Isaiah Hartenstein. I like Hartenstein, but if they wanted a center to be out there, they would just keep Capela, and they obviously don't want that. So Hartenstein played 3 minutes today. He's barely playing in any of these games where Capela is out. Tyson Chandler's an afterthought. So no, it doesn't matter if Alex Len comes back. It doesn't matter if whoever comes back. They are not going to be running, I don't believe, with a 30-minute-a-night center, because if they did that, they've got the best center there in Clint Capela, and they just would have continued to do that. So I don't think they're going to start playing 25 minutes of Alex Len. Yes, they would get Covington back in that deal, and that bolsters their wing stocks, but I don't believe that any other center is coming back. And again, Covington won't be the one that's hurt. It'll be someone like McLemore or House. If they do get a center and they play 20 minutes, it'll be those guys that lose out. Minnesota is where the big hole opens up.
Giggity!
Who's their starting power forward? At this point, we don't know what else is happening, but it's probably going to be Keita Bates-Diop, who I think would be a borderline 12-team league ad in that scenario. I don't know. I don't know what's happening. There's another team involved. Maybe it's someone like Juancho Hernan-Gomez who gets involved somehow and he ends up in Minnesota and becomes the starting power forward. But whoever, there's that massive hole there at power forward for the Wolves if Covington does in fact go. And whoever jumps in there could be a chance for some value. And Bates Diop's a guy that can get some steals, he can hit some threes, he can score a bit, he can block some shots. There's enough value in him to at least be knocking right on the edge, right on the tip of 12-team league value. So that's all we know on that deal at this point. We'll update it if there's anything more that comes through. The next game involves one of those teams that could be involved in that deal. That's the Denver Nuggets. They smashed the Blazers 127-99. Lillard, the hot streak was over. 21 points on 35% shooting. He still had 9 assists, but that level was never going to stick. He hit only 1 3, while Christian James McCollum had 20 points. Not much else, but 20 points. Trevor Ariza, you have him for steals. That is it. 5 points in 27 minutes for Ariza. All of that nonsense, high usage, high efficiency scoring, it's not him. It hasn't been him for years and years and years. If you need steals, you use Ariza. Everything else was mirage bullshit. Like, he just doesn't do that stuff. Nasir Little looked like he hurt his leg pretty seriously at the end of this game, so we'll see what happens there. He played 19 minutes, while Hassan Whiteside, the world, 8 and 5 in 23 minutes. Had a little bit of a leg problem early on, but in the end just got absolutely ripped apart by Big Chungus Nikola Jokic. And Mallow, after his hot start to the season where I talked about how his shooting was unsustainable, his steal rate was unsustainable, his assist rate was unsustainable, it turns out, guys, it was unsustainable. Over the last 20 games, he's the 144th ranked player. He's 108th over the course of the season. He's struggling. He's a 10-team drop to me. I think he's an okay 12-team hold, but he's not the guy that you have to hold on to under every circumstance. And again, if he's your worst player, the trade deadline coming up, he's the auto drop to add that new player that comes in. I think that's how things will end up panning out. While Gary Trent, another 2 triples, 11 points, 2 blocks. He's a nice, moderately sized league stream guy. For the Nuggets, Big Chungus had 29, 13, and 9 with 2 steals and 3 blocks. He is absolutely rolling at the moment. While Jeremy Grant hurt his ankle, they said he was questionable to return. They were up 30 at that point, so there was no need for him to come back. But they do have a back-to-back, so I would think that Juancho is going to get an opportunity to start. Juancho had 7 and 11 here with 2 blocks. The Blue Arrow returned, only 20 minutes for Jamal Murray, 20 points with 6 assists. That meant that Monty Morris's minutes came down. He still played 23 here, Monty, but when Murray's minutes come back up, Morris won't be a guy that plays anywhere near that level and will be backed onto the bench. Gaz Harris, 22 minutes. Nice, Gary! It's not really nice. He only had 2 points. He is not an option, while Farton Will Barton had 16 and 5 in his 24 minutes. That's how quickly this game was over. Nobody needed to play those level of big minutes. On to the last game of the night, the San Antonio Spurs, no surprise here, on the back-to-back, the LA back-to-back, lose to the Lakers 129-102. DeMar DeRozan had 28, 9, and 7 with not much else, and the point guard nonsense continued. 23 minutes for Maximum Derek, 5, 2, and 5 with a steal and a block. 25 minutes for DeJounte Murray, 12, 4, and 2. It's fine. I'm still holding DeJounte in 12s. I think Derek is more of a 14-team league guy. Aldridge really struggled. No surprise again against this Lakers front court who does limit opposing big men. 7 and 3. He has been wildly inconsistent this season, Aldridge, and that tends to happen when you get old, is that you can still provide good games, but you just can't do it as consistently as you've been able to do in the past, and we saw a real struggle there from him. Patty Mills went from a big game against the Clippers to absolutely nothing here. For the Lakers, LeBron James, he hit 5 threes in about 2 minutes at the start of the fourth quarter, ended up with 36, 7, and 9 on 60% shooting, a huge game there, while the future MVP, a big game from Kyle Kuzma, 18 and 12, 4 assists with 2 threes, played 30 minutes. I know his name has come up in trade rumors. I don't see him as a mustache guy. Maybe in a 14-team league you do that, maybe in a 12-team, but I don't have huge hopes for Kuzma. I also don't think that he is going to be dealt. Tone Davis, 18 and 5 in 29 minutes, while Dwight had a double-double in 22 minutes and still is way too highly rostered. Not much else really happening in this game, which was over really, really early. Let's have a look at some injury news now before we move on to some DFS stuff. Justice Winslow, Myers Leonard, and Tyler Hero are all out. Leonard and Winslow are not on the road trip for the Heat, so that's probably the next 3 to 5 games that they'll be out, while Hero is out for tomorrow's action. Kelly Olynyk, James Johnson are likely to get a boost with Leonard out. You're going to get Derek Jones Jr. and Goran Dragic, probably Kendrick Nunn, also getting a boost with Hero sidelined. And then in the Portland-Denver game, both Jeremy Grant and Nasir Little sprained their ankles. Grant is not likely to play now on Wednesday, while Little had x-rays. They were negative. We don't know the status for him for Thursday's game. He would just likely be replaced by someone like Mario Hezonja into the rotation. Let's have a look now at DFS. We've got a busy 9-game slate happening for Wednesday for DraftKings pricing we're going to be looking at in today's games. All right, the first game we look at, the Phoenix Suns and the Detroit Pistons. Who knows which team Luke Kennard will be on? Not that he'll be playing anyway because he's dealing with a knee injury, but these are the sort of games where it does become quite difficult in DFS because players could be traded in the next 48 hours and players will be sitting out and lineups will be crunched and rotations will be shortened. There'll be lots of weird stuff that could be happening here. At this point, Markieff Morris is questionable for the Pistons, but a lot of other players are out. We've got Svi Mykhailiuk's out, Derrick Rose is out, and for the Suns, Cam Johnson, Tyler Johnson, Frank Kaminsky, Dario Saric, Aaron Baines, and Ty Jerome are all sidelined. So a bunch of guys already out injured in this game, and things could change depending on if trades do go down at any point before this game. Again, that can obviously really change things quite a bit. So let's have a look now at this one for the point guards. Reggie Jackson at $5,000. Now, he was terrible last game, couldn't hit a shot at all, but I think a 30-point output from him is not unrealistic with Rose sideline. And with Mykhailiuk also out, you're going to get some Bruce Brown into that lineup, but they're not going to cut into each other too much, most likely. Javon Carter, Jalen LeCue, they've been getting some decent minutes, but not doing too much with it. As for the Shark at $5,000, Bruce Brown?
Baby Shark, do-do-do-do-do.
I think that's a really good cash floor with all those guys out, Rose and Svi especially, so he should get 35 minutes plus here and be able to put up pretty good numbers. While Ali Akobo at 3,500, he's been getting some minutes with Rubio still banged up. I didn't talk about Rubio, I probably should have. He is really struggling at the moment. He's at 5,500. I would not feel comfortable about using him. Langston Galloway's at 3,700. Extra minutes coming his way. Not a high upside guy, but to get 20 points at 3,700 looks okay to me, while Booker's at 8,500. Now, Booker was dreadful last game. Only 21 points in that one, and he's been a little bit down over the last couple, but I still think that he is worth a look as a 40-point plus guy, which gives him cash and tournament upside value. At small forward, Oubre's at 6,500. That looks like an okay price to me as well. I don't love it, but I don't hate it. While McCall Bridges at 4,900 really brought everything going with the defense last game. Some big numbers there, 42 DraftKings points in that contest. But prior to that, he had been a little bit up and down and not a really high upside player. The Crucifix Christian Woods at 4,500. He had 35 points last game, played alongside Andre Drummond. I'd be really into Wood if we hear that Morris is out and they'll play him a lot more minutes. Otherwise, the minutes do get a little bit iffy as to how they're going to roll with him. So that is a concern, but there is some value there. While Sekou Doumbaya, 3,800, getting some minutes lately, but I'm wondering, is it a Morris absence factor that's caused him to get back into that rotation? I wouldn't want to use him regardless. For your big men, DeAndre Ayton's at 8,600. We know that centers have been absolutely dominating against Andre Drummond. Yeah, pretty much all season, so Ayton should be a 40-point plus guy here. While the big avocado himself at 9,900, Andre Drummond, he's been getting 50s pretty consistently, and I think another 50 from him here is not out of the ordinary or not something that we shouldn't expect, meaning we should expect it. Let's go on to the next game we're looking at here, the Orlando Magic and the Boston Celtics. Kemba Walker and Marcus Smart are both questionable. Gordon Hayward and Enes Kanter are probable, while Daniel Tice is out with that ankle injury he suffered last game. At point guard, you've got Mick Carter-Williams, 3,800. Not really doing enough for me to get interested there, while Markelle Fultz is at 56. He's giving us 30 plus a night, had a lot of assists in the last game. I think at that price, sub 6,000, he does have some value. It is a tough matchup. While Kemba's at 7,700. Hasn't quite been there. We don't know if he's going to play. The matchup, what he has done well against Orlando in the past, probably one that we'd fade away from here. If Kemba is out and Marcus Smart plays, I'm in on Smart at 6,300. Otherwise, no. 4,600 for Terrence Ross. Always just a tournament sort of guy. While Evan Fournier is at 5,700. I think we can do better than that. The hi-fi Jaylen Brown.
JB, you've done it again.
He is at 7,300. It's bordering on a little bit too much in a game which is probably going to be a little bit slow-paced. At small forward, Jace Tatum's at 7,900. I feel better about using him than I do with the hi-fi. Close to that 40-point mark most of the time. I think there's decent value in cash for him, as well as a little bit of upside for tournaments, while Aaron Gordon's played really well the last two games. Do I trust that to continue against Boston? Of course I don't, but he is at least a GPP sort of a guy that we can consider. While Gordie Hayward's at 76. If Kemba's out, I think Hayward has value. Otherwise, I'd pass. For your big man, Kanter's at 4,200, probably one of the best plays of the day with Tice out, with Rob Williams still out. Kanter has an ability here to easily get to 25, like easily, and then push to 30, 35. They're going to have to go with him 25, 26 minutes at the least. You could see Grant Williams step into some larger minutes as well, but Kanter's the guy that I want. Nikola Vucevic at 8,400. He should eat Kanter alive. 40 points is almost the bare minimum, it feels like, for Vucevic here. While Kem Birch, Mo Bamba, not really the options that I think we need to be caring about too greatly. Next game, the Indiana Pacers and the Toronto Raptors. The Raptors are 6-point favorites, and the total is 215.5. Tony Warren Jr. is out again with that concussion, while Rondé Hollis-Jefferson is questionable. For Toronto, they're also going to be without Marc Gasol, who's dealing with that hammy, and Norm Powell with that finger issue that has caused some problems for him. Kyle Lowry is down at 6,700. That is very, very cheap for Lowry, who has been okay, and that's not a bad price even for cash, but I love the tournament value. While Oladipo at 5,300, he cannot hit a shot at all. He's averaging 15 DraftKings points since he returned. I would not be interested in that. Fred VanVleet's at 6,900.
Giggity!
Has been probably a little bit under that, and you can save $200 and take Lowry. I still don't think VanVleet's a bad option, but not one that I'm keen on, while Aaron Holiday probably gets another start for Tony Warren. But at 4,100, there's some value in it, more just a GPP guy. Terrence Davis was absolutely explosive for the Raptors last time out. He probably gets that boost if Hollis-Jefferson's gone. He had 40 points in 28 minutes, but absolutely a guy we can look at in a tournament, while Malcolm Brogdon's at 6,800. Probably bordering a little bit too high there for me. At shooting guard, Jeremy Lamb's at 5,000. The minutes have been up for Lammy. I'm not sure that he really is a strong option with DraftKings pricing, so we can leave that out of it. While at small forward, you've got Justin Holiday, who will start most likely. Oh, it was Aaron Holiday that started last time, actually. Well, Justin Holiday could get some upside play, but not too much there for me. While the Jedi, OG Anunoby,
Hello there.
he's at 4,400. He's averaging 12 points in his last 3 games. And yes, there is an opportunity for more minutes with Powell out. He has not taken advantage of that, and I don't really care for him in DFS. Serge Ibaka's at 6,100. Love the floor, like the upside there. While Miles Turner's playing better of late, and he's only at 5,000. He is averaging, weirdly, 41 points against the Raptors, which is a huge number for a bloke who's struggled so much this season. At 5,000, I actually think he's in play. Siakam's at 78, good cash option, while Sabonis at 9.2, probably pushing a little bit too high there for me. And the water boy, Chris Boucher's at 43. I think we can do better than him. Next game is the Golden State Warriors and the Brooklyn Nets. The DAngelo Russell Bowl. Will DAngelo Russell even be on the Golden State Warriors by the time this game kicks off? He is probable at the moment after missing last game with a quad injury. If he is out or traded, there is opportunity there for Alec Burks to step up and really put up some good numbers, as we've seen in the last couple of games. There's no Kyrie Irving, of course, for Brooklyn. Spencer Dinwiddie's at $8,000. Wasn't his best performance last time out, but the matchup is really, really a positive one going up against the Warriors. I think he should be in play at $8,000, while Karis LeVert at 57, smash that number. He had 46 points as he moved back to the starting lineup. Now, there's a lot of things about what he did there that aren't realistic to continue, and his salary has been bumped by $1,000. It's not an outrageous price tag to pay for LeVert. I wouldn't be banking on him as an absolute lock must roster guy, though. Garrett Temple, not interested. D'Angelo's at 84. I think if he plays, that's really good value for Russell going up against the Nets. Well, Draymond's at 66, and quietly he's been putting together some pretty good games, averaging 40 points over his last 5, and if D'Angelo's out, I think I like him a little bit more. Burks at 6,000, and I only want to use Burks if D'Angelo happens to not be here. At shooting guard, Smokin' Joe Harris is at 48. It's very blah. Maybe as a cash guy, just to fit a cheap player in there, but upside is pretty limited. Then you go to someone like Damian Lee at 5,600, who has really stepped up the last couple of games. I don't feel super confident in that, though. For your small forwards, Rowdy Rodion's Kulrooks at minimum salary is not doing anything. Little dog Glenn Robinson at 57. That's a very high salary for Robinson. I'm not super confident in his consistency, while the triangle Eric Pascal's at 42. Also not confident in him. For your centers and big men in general, Taurean Prince is at $5,000. The artist is probably an okay cash guy there, but the shooting is always going to be a pain in the ass. While DeAndre Jordan's at 47, I don't care for that. Jarrett Allen at 63 is too high, while Marquise Chris at 53 looks to be an okay cash option, but that's about it. Kevon Looney, the Wizard Amari Spellman, really tough to get behind them with their current limited minutes. Next game, The Cavs, the Thunder. The Thunder are 12-point favourites. The total is 219.5. Tristan Thompson is questionable with a quad injury. He's also questionable because they're looking to trade him. Of course, if he is out, Larry Nance is going to step in and probably put up some really, really big numbers. At point guard, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, 7,200. I think that looks pretty good to me in a matchup which could not be more favourable. While Chris Paul at 75, both of those guys look real good against this Cavs defense. Darius Garland's at 5,000, and even though he'd been pretty poor for most of the season, the last 3 games he's averaging over 29, which at 5,000 is good value. Now, having Chris Paul and Gilgeous-Alexander guard you is a completely different story versus Isaiah Thomas trying to stop you. I don't think I'd use Garlo here. Schroeder's at 6,700, also been cranking, and against the Cavs team, 40 points is in play, so I like him. While the Padawan Colin Sexton also playing really well, 38 average over the last 5. 6,500 is an expensive price, and I'd probably take SGA, Paul, and Schroeder over him. But he is an option here. Terrence Ferguson's back after missing, it feels like forever, due to personal issues. He's not a guy that we need to really look at as an option here at all. Kevin Porter at 4,300, a GPP guy to me, but that's about it. The Italian cock, Danilo Gallinari.
Hands up, my cock!
He's at 6,600. It's bordering on a little bit too high for me for Gallo here. It's not far off. I don't mind it for cash. He's got a pretty safe floor, but I'm not sure about the upside in him. While Chetty Osman played a lot of minutes last game, not for a huge result, but did play a lot of those minutes. For your big man, Steve Adams is at 5,600. He's really not doing anything at all at the moment, so I can't really recommend him in good faith. While Nerlens Noel at 46, I always worry about the minutes there. Tristan Tomo, not for me. Larry Nance, no. John Henson, no. Larry Nance, yes, with an asterisk. Yes, if Thompson is out at 6,500, Nance would be strong. Otherwise, there's real risk that he doesn't get to that level if Tomo happens to play. And then you got Kevin Love at 8,000, who is averaging 40 points over the last 5. Now, the matchup here is a tough one for Love. The Thunder have been really good defensively all season. 8,000 feels like it might be a little bit too high for Kev here, so I'd probably end up passing on him in this matchup. The next game is the Atlanta Hawks, and it is the Minnesota Timberwolves, both teams who've been heavily rumoured in trade deals. Robert Covington, John Collins maybe, Clint Capela arriving. Who knows what's going to be going on with this team if any deals go down. The Hawks are without DeAndre Bembry and Cam Reddish. They also have Bruno Fernando and DeAndre Hunter as questionable. Trae Young and Fanapants Kevin Huerter are probable, while the blue swimmer Alan Crabb is doubtful in Minnesota. At point guard, Jarrett Culver's at 3,900. They probably mean to say negative 3,900 because he has been atrocious, averaging just 12 points over his last 3 games, while Trae is at 10,100. Love the floor, love the upside, love Trae Young there. Shabazz Napier at 63, that's pretty high for Shabazz, but I can't really see a situation where he doesn't get to at least 30 here, so that looks okay. Well, Geordie McLaughlin's been playing, and that's it. Jeff Teague at 5,200. Big games from Jeff the last couple.
My name is Jeff.
He had 35 in the last game, minutes up the game before that. But that is really more expecting if, say, Hunter does not play, then we will get some more minutes for Teague, and then he becomes an interesting GPP option. For your shooting guards, Okogie's at 4,000. That's a pass. While Andy Wiggins, 7,400. Really interesting tweet from Marcus Thompson today. Telling everybody, or telling his Warriors followers to delete their Wiggins slander tweets. So that is real interesting. 7,400 would be a tournament guy for me here for Wiggo. Keelan Martin, probably not going to get into that. Bob Covington's at 58. I like the floor value there, while DeAndre Hunter at 45 also has been not a bad cash guy with limited upside. And then other small forwards, Bates, Diop, Vince Carter, Trevion Graham, probably not. Big men, Townsy, 10-6, 50 points. I like it a lot. This is a huge, huge matchup. A great opportunity for him to really put up some big ones. Well, the Baptist John Collins is up to 8,600 because he is dropping 40s regularly. And we know that Towns does not give a shit on the defensive end. So another 45er from Collins is absolutely a possibility. I'd probably rather spend up to get Towns, but if you can't, Collins looks fine. Fernando, Jeng, Damo Jones. We know Alex Len is already out. None of those guys are really motivating me to get excited at all. Next one, the Memphis Grizzlies, the Dallas Mavericks, no Luka Doncic, while Seth Curry and JJ Barea are both questionable for Dallas, while Jonas Valanciunas is questionable for Memphis. Now, if Jonas is out, we're going to be really looking at Brandon Clark pretty seriously there. I think Solomon Hill will get some more minutes there, but he is not a DFS option. At point guard, Delon's at 52. The minutes have been okay. The production's been down. I'm not biting on it. While the burner, Jalen Brunson's at 5,800. That is a very high salary. He played minutes last game, did jack shit with them, so I think at 58, it's a tough one to use, while Ja Morant's at 68. The recent production from Ja has been a little bit down. I don't 100% dislike him here, but I just think we can do better. Tyus Jones is not doing better, and DeAnthony Melton, the wave pool at 3,800. Josh Jackson is inexplicably cutting into his minutes, so I don't think we need to use him. Ryan Brokoff's at 3,100. He's getting 20 minutes a night and giving you 18 points a game. That's not far off, to be honest. 18 points at 3,100 is a 6x value. The upside's obviously really low, but yeah, not a name to completely forget. Well, Timmy Hardaway's at 56 and only a tournament guy. Seth Curry's at 48. I don't really trust that. While Dylan Brooks is at 5,700. I like the floor value there in Brooks, amazingly, for a guy that's been as inconsistent as he has in his career. At small forward, Jay Crowder.
Sometimes maybe good, sometimes maybe shit.
Yeah, nah. 6,100 for Dorian Finney-Smith. He is on an absolute roll with Doncic out. The rebounding is up. He's averaging 38 over the last 3. Not one to completely rule out here. I don't know if they'll start Finney-Smith at power forward or he'll go back to small forward like last game where Maxi Kleber started. But their rotation is still one that's up in the air, while Josh Jackson's at 32 and Solomon Hill's at 32 also. For your big men, Porzingis. 8,300 for Kristaps. Really, the matchup is so good for him here. I love it a lot. Well, Kleber's at 45, and if we do hear advance word that he's going to start, he would be a strong GPP guy who was a little bit disappointing in 35 minutes last game. Triple J, Jaren Jackson Jr.'s at 6,300. Probably more of a tournament guy, while Brandon Clark at 49 would be cash smashable if we do hear that Valanciunas is sidelined. We don't know at this point whether he will be, but of course there's always that probability with his knee issue that has flared up recently. As for Jonas at 7,500, I really like what he's doing, and if he plays, that looks okay, but that is pushing probably a little bit too high, while Cauley Stein is not interesting. The Denver Nuggets, the Utah Jazz. The Nuggets are probably going to be without Paul Millsap again, Michael Porter Jr. again, but Jamal Murray did return on Tuesday. So Mason Plumlee will be out again. So Murray did return. Now, whether he plays in this back-to-back does remain to be seen. At point guard, Mike Conley started last game, dropped 35 points, and he's up to 5,100, which is not a prohibitive price, but it's also not one where I automatically lock it in. I do like it for tournaments, while the Blue Arrow's at 59 only for tournaments there as well. Don Mitchell.
He's done. He's good.
He's at 7,100. That's a really, really good price for Mitchell, so I do like that one quite a bit. Some significant value there, while Farton Will Barton's at 62 also looks pretty good. Jordy Clarkson is as hit and miss as they come. Shout out to Jay Crowder. Malik Beasley at 3,300. I also don't really get into that one, while Monty Morris with Jamal back is probably going to see fewer minutes as we move forward. At shooting guard, Jingling Joe Ingles at 4,900. Yeah, with Conley back, it's not really working, while Gaz Harris... He's at 4,000, and I don't really... Look, his recent form has not been fantastic over the broad spectrum of it. I don't really care for that one. At small forward, Bojan Bogdanovic is at 59. Good cash play. Maybe some tournament value, but I do really like him in cash. While Royce O'Neal, Mick Porter, who we don't know if he's going to play either, or George Niang, they're not really the options here for me. Although Porter at 5,400, there's a little bit of value in him. For your big man, Rudy Gobert's at 81 in a back-to-back against Jokic. Probably lean off him in cash and look at him in tournaments. While Big Chungus at 9,700 just absolutely torched the Blazers on Tuesday. At 9,700, Big Chungus is absolutely tearing it apart, as he always does in the second half of a season. So you have to love Jokic here. Jeremy Grant's at 55. The value is great there. Cash value looks really, really strong to me in this matchup. The next game that we take a look at, it's the last game of the night, the Miami Heat and the LA Clippers. No Tyler Hero, no Myers Leonard for Miami, no Justice Winslow for Miami as well. At point guard, the iron shoulder, Goran Dragic. With everyone out, I like him quite a bit at that price. While Paddy Beverly at 49, I think we can do better there. Kendrick Nunn, they've seemed to be limiting him quite a bit. I'm not massively interested there. While Lou Williams struggles a little bit, and to cover that $6,000 price tag, I think we can find better options. One of those better options is the Beetle, Paul George. He's at $8,000. Dropped 47 last game. Like the matchup. While Dunk Robinson, the Spurs at 4,500. I'm not super keen there. How about Jim Butler?
Because he's my butler.
He's at $8,500. I think that's $500 to $600 too expensive, so I think we can do better with that salary. Landry Shamet doing nothing at the moment. At small forward, Derek Jones Jr. is at $3,900. I actually like it for cash with all these injuries. He should be able to get to 23, 24 pretty comfortably, so that looks all right. While the fun guy Kawhi Leonard's at $9,800. Looks to be okay at a sub $10,000 price, and I like that his salaries come down like that. For your big man, Kelly Olynyk, probably going to start in place of Myers. Only a tournament guy. He's so inconsistent. While the table, Montrezl Harrell at 61, not really doing it for me. While Bam Adebayo at 8,200, I think there's good cash floor value there in Bam. Ivica Zubac's at 42, no thanks. Well, Jimmy Johnson, can he make us proud at 3,400? I think he is absolutely worth a GPP look if they go with Bam back at center and Johnson playing at power forward to make up for the absence of Myers Leonard. All right, let's go on and just have a look at some FanDuel value plays here. Townsy, Drummond, Porzingis, they all come out with some pretty decent value there over on FanDuel. A bunch of other guys that I like as well. Enes Kanter comes out pretty good. Mike Conley, Levert, Lamb, the Crucifix, the Shark Bruce Brown, Serge Ibaka, Oubre, Dinwiddie, Reggie Jackson, Chrissy Paul, DeAndre Ayton, Shea, the Italian Cock, Bob Covington, and Kyle Lowry also looking pretty good there over on old FanDuel. That'll do it for me today, guys. Don't forget, subscribe, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Stitcher, Spotify, YouTube. Drop a comment down below, give it a thumbs up, share it with all your friends as well, guys. We are done here. Thank you so much for listening, everyone. See ya. Josh Richardson.